Imagine a world without oil. Seriously, close your eyes for a second and picture it. No cars zooming by. No airplanes flying overhead. No electricity lighting up your room at night. Forget your phone, your computer, and even your microwave pizza. No plastics, no factories, no Uber Eats at 2 a.m. Just silence, candles, and a lot of walking. That was life before oil took over. Back in the 1850s. Oil wasn't a billion-dollar business, it was just this sticky, smelly black goo oozing out of the ground like a bad prank from Mother Nature. Farmers hated it. It stained clothes, ruined boots, and made your backyard smell like a burnt tire. Nobody saw it as anything useful. In fact, most folks thought it was just a curse from the underworld. But then, enter three unlikely heroes: a bankrupt lawyer with big dreams, a grumpy Yale chemist with a love for experiments, and a group of investors willing to take a gamble so bold, it sounded like the plot of a comedy skit. And somehow, they struck black gold. Changing the world forever, one messy barrel at a time. This is the wild, risky, and slightly ridiculous story of how oil went from backyard annoyance to the lifeblood of our modern world. And trust me, you'll never look at a gas station the same way again, not when you know it all started with leaky boots, exploding lamps, and a dream so crazy it actually worked. From a smelly mess in the ground to fueling rockets and running entire economies, oil became king. All because a few people dared to dig when everyone else was laughing. So next time you fill your tank, remember, you're not just buying gas, you're tapping into one of the boldest gambles in history. Before oil powered our cars, lit our cities, or filled our fast food packaging, the world ran on something far stranger. Whale blubber. Yup. You heard that right, gigantic, majestic whales were once the primary source of light. Their fat was boiled down into oil, and that oil lit the lamps of homes from Boston to London. In the mid-1800s, the most prized variety came from sperm whales. It burned clean, it burned bright, and it burned your wallet. By the 1850s, a gallon of whale oil cost $2.50. Sounds cheap? Adjust that for inflation, it's over $80 today. So unless you were wealthy or very well connected, your evenings were spent in the dark. While the rich enjoyed cozy evenings by lamp glow, the working class squinted by candlelight or turned in early. Light wasn't just a utility, it was a status symbol. People were tired of living in the dark but couldn't afford expensive whale oil. So, they started looking for cheaper ways to light their homes. The most popular option was something called camphene. A bright fuel made from turpentine and alcohol. It worked well and gave off a strong light. But there was a big problem: it could explode. One small mistake, and your lamp might blow up, starting a fire. It was cheap, but very dangerous. But the crisis wasn't just about lighting. The world was changing fast. The Industrial Revolution was in full gear. Factories roared to life, machines clanged and steamed, and they all needed lubrication. Not light, but grease. Lard oil was the go-to, but it was too thick, too smelly, and wildly inconsistent. Like trying to run a steam engine on bacon grease. Steam engines stalled. Looms jammed. Cities choked on smoke and sputtered in the dark. The modern world was grinding on brittle gears, hungry for something better, something cheaper, safer, scalable. A spark. A breakthrough. A fuel fit for the future. The age of industry was roaring to life, but it needed a heart, black, burning, and bound to reshape the world forever. And that's when a curious character stepped into the picture. Abraham Gessner. He wasn't your typical scientist. He was a failed horse trader who dabbled in geology and chemistry in his spare time, basically the kind of guy you'd see mixing potions in his backyard while neighbors quietly judged him. But in 1846, in his makeshift lab, Gessner pulled off something remarkable. He figured out how to distill a fuel from coal, what he called kerosene. It burned cleaner than whale oil, didn't blow up like camphene, and showed real promise. But there was one issue. It was expensive to make and required coal. which wasn't exactly lying around in your backyard. So while kerosene proved the concept, it couldn't fuel a global revolution. Not yet. Meanwhile, in Europe, things were even messier. In some parts of Eastern Europe, poor villagers found thick black liquid natural oil bubbling up from the ground. They used buckets to scoop it out and sold it in small amounts. People used it as medicine, lamp oil, or to grease wagon wheels. But it was hard work. Imagine standing over a muddy hole, smelling like rotten eggs. Your clothes soaked, hands covered in black goo, just to collect a few jars of oil. It was slow, dirty, and couldn't come close to giving the world the oil it needed. Then, when it seemed like oil was just a weird, messy thing nobody really cared about, someone had a crazy idea. An idea so strange that people laughed out loud. What if we drilled for oil, the same way we drill for salt? It sounded stupid at the time. Oil was something that ruined your shoes, not something you searched for underground. But that wild idea? It would spark one of the biggest revolutions in human history. Meet George Bissell. Not a titan of industry. Not yet. Just a broke lawyer, drifting through the back roads of Pennsylvania, mud on his boots, ideas in his head. One day, he stops. He sees something strange, thick, black goo bubbling from the ground. It stained the earth. It reeked like hell. Most folks called it a nuisance, a curse, a waste. But Bissell? He didn't see a problem. He saw potential. A fuel. A fortune. Maybe even an empire. Back at Dartmouth College, flipping through a medical journal, something caught his eye, a small ad selling patent medicine made from rock oil. The illustration showed a salt drilling rig. That image burned into his brain. Salt was pumped from underground, so why not oil? That was the moment. The connection. What if oil wasn't just a surface trickle? What if there were vast oceans of it, hidden below, waiting to be tapped? But bold ideas mean nothing without proof. And Bissell knew it. He didn't need hope. He needed science. Real, hard evidence to convince investors, chemists, and an entire skeptical world. So he hired Yale chemistry professor Benjamin Silliman, one of the best in the business. The job? Analyze the rock oil and see if it could be refined into fuel. Silliman delivered a glowing report. Yes, this crude oil could become lamp oil. But he charged $526 for it, a fortune back then. The investors nearly fainted. Still, Bissell pushed forward. The world laughed. Pump oil out of the ground? Like water? You're insane. But in 1858, the Pennsylvania Rock Oil Company was born, an experiment built on faith, fumes, and a bottle of black gunk. Enter Edwin Drake. Not a geologist. Not an oil man. A retired railway conductor with no drilling experience. He was chosen to lead the first oil well, because he had a free train pass. Seriously. Drake showed up in Titusville, Pennsylvania. Locals mocked him. The project dragged on, equipment kept breaking, workers quit, and the money dried up. But even when everyone gave up, Drake didn't. He stayed. He kept drilling. Most people would have packed up and gone home. But not Drake. He was stubborn. Determined. Maybe even a little desperate. But he believed oil was down there, he just had to keep going. Then, on August 27, 1859, at just 69 feet deep, boom! Oil burst out of the ground. Thick, black, and shining in like a sun. In that moment, everything changed. From a muddy hole in a quiet town, the modern world was born. Oil went from 50 cents a barrel to over $20 almost overnight. Pennsylvania turned into the Wild West. Boomtowns popped up like mushrooms after rain. Men with shovels, dreams, and dollar signs in their eyes rushed in. And Drake? He was a hero. For a while. But he made one big mistake. But that wild idea? It would spark one of the biggest revolutions in human history. He forgot to patent his drilling method. Everyone copied him. He made history but not money. In the end, the man who started it all died broke. Ouch. Meanwhile, a sharp young businessman named John D. Rockefeller was watching. He didn't drill for oil, he refined it. Smarter. Cheaper. Better. He built Standard Oil, a company so powerful, it didn't just play the game, it owned the board. He turned a wild, messy oil rush into a well-oiled machine. Soon, his name became as big as the industry itself. Whale oil? Dead. Kerosene? Lighting homes across the world. And around the corner? The internal combustion engine. Cars. Planes. Machines that roared to life with every drop of crude. From dusty roads to soaring skies, oil became the pulse of progress. Factories buzzed. Cities glowed. Wars were fought. Empires moved. A world that would run not walk. On oil. And just like that, a muddy gamble in rural Pennsylvania flipped the world on its head. Oil, once dismissed as foul-smelling sludge, became the bloodstream of modern civilization. It fueled the rise of nations. Powered the fall of others. It lit up homes, fed factories, and turned sleepy villages into roaring cities overnight. Steel, concrete, glass, all moved by machines lubricated and energized by crude oil. It carried families across continents in trains and planes. It carved highways across deserts and mountains. It didn't just build our world, it sped it up. From horse carts to Ferraris. From telegrams to satellites. From kerosene lamps to global power grids. Wars were waged for it. Fortunes were built on it. Entire economies rose and fell with every barrel. It launched rockets to space and brought smartphones to your palm. And today? It fuels debates that will shape our future, climate, energy, survival itself. This is not just the story of oil. It's the story of how one risky question, what if we drill for it, sparked a revolution that touches every corner of your life today. Oily wisdom, drilled deep, still relevant. Because some lessons are buried underground. Big risks lead to big rewards. But not without scars. The oil pioneers faced bankruptcies, exploding fuels, broken machines, and relentless mockery. They were laughed out of rooms, called crazy, even abandoned by their teams. But they kept digging, literally. Because history doesn't remember the critics, it remembers the ones who dared. So if your dream feels risky, good. That's where the rewards hide. And also a science plus business equals total transformation. One experiment in a dusty lab. One railway pass given to a retired conductor. One bold question no one dared to ask. That's all it took to create a trillion-dollar industry that reshaped the world. When curiosity meets execution, when ideas meet action, the future gets rewritten. So yeah, even your smallest idea could be next. And always believe crazy ideas really can win. A guy drilling into the dirt for oil was the 1859 version of, LOL, good luck with that. But 69 feet later? Boom, black gold. The world laughed, then followed. So if people think your idea sounds too weird, too wild, or too impossible, you might just be onto something. Because the future doesn't belong to the safe, it belongs to the bold. So, what's the next oil? AI? Space mining? Renewable tech? Quantum energy from black holes? Who knows? But one thing's for sure, the next big leap won't look obvious at first. It might start in a dusty garage, a forgotten lab, or some corner of the internet where everyone's still laughing. AI's already transforming the way we live, writing scripts, driving cars, diagnosing diseases. Solar and wind are getting smarter. Batteries are getting better. Even the ocean and the moon are now part of the energy race. history isn't done. It's just waiting for the next wild, risky idea that sounds a little crazy, until it changes everything. Drop your guesses in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe, because history isn't just in textbooks. It's in every light bulb, car engine, AI chatbot, and low battery warning on your phone. Thanks for watching. History's wild, let's keep exploring it together.